Right. So today we're going to deep dive into the Salesforce Business Analyst certification.
Oh, this is a good one.
Yeah. If you're thinking about, a career in Salesforce, this is kind of
A big one.
a big one.
Very important one.
But let's just kind of get right into it.
Yeah.
What are the main things that this exam really tests you on?
So there are 6 core areas that they're really looking for in the Salesforce Business Analyst.
6.
And they cover everything
Right.
from really understanding the customer's business all the way to collaborating with all the different people to mapping out the processes and, delivering a solution that really works.
Okay, 6 areas. That's quite a lot.
It is.
So let's break it down.
Yeah, let's do it.
So the first one is customer discovery.
Uh-huh.
And I kind of get that you obviously need to understand your customer, but I feel like there's a lot more to it when it comes to Salesforce.
There is
Yeah.
a lot more.
So what exactly do we mean here?
So imagine you're a doctor.
Okay.
And you're trying to treat a patient, but you don't know anything about them.
Right.
You don't know their history. You don't even know what hurts.
Okay.
It's kind of the same with Salesforce, right?
So you're saying even before we start thinking about Salesforce solutions, we need to understand the business itself.
Exactly. Yeah. You've got to really understand, what are they trying to achieve? What are their goals? What are their pain points? Are they trying to grow really fast and need to automate their sales process? Or are they struggling with keeping customers happy and maybe need a better way to manage their customer interactions?
Okay, that makes sense. But how do you actually go about doing this discovery? Is it all just meetings and interviews?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of talking to people, definitely. You'll be
Okay.
talking to the folks who are using Salesforce every day, the executives who make those big decisions, but it goes beyond just asking questions. It's like, diving into data, looking at reports, even, seeing how they're using their current systems.
Mhm.
You might realize their forecasting methods are completely outdated.
Wow.
Or they're not even using features that could solve their biggest problems.
So like those aha moments, those are actually a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And those are going to form the foundation for everything that comes after.
Okay, so you're like, it's almost like building a house.
Yeah,
You got to have that solid foundation based on what the client wants.
exactly. Yeah, you can't start building without a good blueprint.
Okay, so we've done this discovery. We understand their needs. What happens next?
All right, well, now it's time to bring everyone together.
Okay.
So customer discovery is about understanding the business. Right now it's time to collaborate with all the people involved, the stakeholders.
Right, the stakeholders. I bet this is where those people skills really come in handy.
Absolutely, yeah. And stakeholders, they come in all shapes and sizes, right? Sure.
You've got the folks who are using Salesforce every single day. You've got the managers who are tracking their team's performance. You've got executives who want to see the big picture impact.
Right.
And a good business analyst needs to be able to communicate effectively with every single one of them.
So you're talking like workshops and interviews, maybe even sending out surveys to kind of gather information from a bigger group.
Exactly. You got to become a master communicator. It's not just about getting information. It's about building consensus and making sure everyone feels heard.
Uh-huh.
Remember, you're trying to bridge the gap between where they are now and where they want to be with Salesforce.
Okay, so bridging the gap. So let's say, for example, a company is drowning in paperwork and manual processes.
Right.
So part of that bridge would be to help them implement Salesforce tools to automate that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all about making things run smoothly and efficiently.
Okay, I'm starting to get the bigger picture here.
So we understand the business. We've got the stakeholders on board.
Mm-hmm.
Now we need to figure out how this solution's actually going to work.
Right.
That's where business process mapping comes in.
Bingo. Okay.
Yeah, it's like creating a step-by-step guide.
So if we have our company and let's say they're struggling with their sales process,
Yeah.
we'd map out every step from the moment they get a lead all the way to closing the deal and everything in between.
Exactly. Yeah, but before we jump into mapping, we need to figure out what are we focusing on?
Right.
What's the scope?
The scope.
Otherwise, we're going to map out the entire company, and that's way too much.
Right. It's overwhelming.
Way too much.
Okay.
Yeah.
But even a single process can be really complicated.
Yeah.
So how do we make sure we're getting all the details without making it too too crazy.
Well, there's this technique called hierarchical process mapping.
And it lets us kind of zoom in and zoom out, look at things from different levels.
So kind of like a Google map.
Exactly.
You can see the whole city and then zoom in and see the buildings.
Exactly. Yeah. So like the executives, they might just need a high level view, right? But the sales team, they need to see all the nitty-gritty details.
Uh-huh.
So this helps us tailor it for everyone.
Okay, see, so everyone's on the same page. We've got our process mapped out,
Yeah.
and now we need to figure out what the system actually needs to do.
Uh-huh.
This is where requirements come into play.
You got it. Requirements, those are the building blocks of our solution.
Okay.
They're what tell us exactly what the system has got to do.
Okay, so requirements are like the technical must-haves for the system to work, right? You mentioned user stories. What are those?
Right. So requirements are what the system needs to do. User stories are more about how and why users are going to interact with it.
Okay, so like a requirement might be the system must track customer interactions. But a user story would be like, as a sales rep, I need to see all my interactions with a customer so I can give them better service.
Exactly. Yeah, it brings that human element into it, right? You're not just building a machine, you're building something that people are going to use.
That makes a lot of sense. So we have our requirements, we have our user stories. What's next? Do we just hand them over to the developers and say, go make it happen?
Well, not quite yet. There's a whole process for managing all of this, right? Making sure they're accurate and that everyone's on the same page.
That sounds like it could get kind of chaotic.
It can.
How do we keep it all organized?
Well, that's where tools like Jira come in. They're like that central hub for everything, for the docs, for tracking progress, for making changes, for keeping everyone aligned.
So no more sticky notes and emails flying all over the place.
Exactly. It helps us stay organized.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we need to talk more about user stories.
Yeah, let's do it.
They sound really important.
Yeah, they are.
What makes a good user story?
So it's all about the user, right? It helps us understand why we're building something.
So it's not just about building a feature. It's about building a feature that someone wants and needs.
Exactly.
Okay.
So a well-written user story has three parts: the persona, the need, and the benefit.
Okay.
So the persona is like, who's this user? What are they trying to do? The need is what action they want to take in the system. And the benefit is the outcome, the good thing that's going to happen when they use this feature.
So like if we're building something for sales managers, a user story could be something like, as a sales manager, I want to see a dashboard of my team's performance so I can see who's doing well and who needs help.
That's a great example. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really clear. So we're building the right things the right way.
Exactly.
But how do we know the developers actually built it right?
Right. That's where acceptance criteria come in.
Right.
They're like that checklist for each user story. So for your sales manager dashboard, an acceptance criterion might be that it shows, individual sales figures for each person on the team.
Right.
Or how close they are to reaching their goals.
Okay, so we're being super clear about what done actually means.
Exactly. And there's another piece to this. There's the definition of done.
What's that?
So this applies to all the features, not just one user story.
So it's like the quality standard for the whole project.
Exactly. It might include things like all the code needs to be reviewed by another developer, or everything needs to pass security testing.
So we don't have any nasty surprises later on.
Yeah, exactly. You want to minimize risk.
This is a lot of information.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I'm starting to see how it all fits together.
Yeah, it's all connected.
So we went from understanding the customer to writing down these detailed requirements and user stories. What happens next in this journey?
Well, now it's time to put it all to the test.
Okay.
System testing and user acceptance testing, or UAT.
Testing, I know we talked about UAT a bit earlier.
Yeah.
Can we dig into both of these a bit more?
Absolutely.
What's the difference?
Okay, so system testing. Imagine you're inspecting a house before you move in. You're checking the plumbing, the electrical, the structure, making sure everything works.
Right.
It's kind of the same with system testing. You're making sure all the parts of the system work together, that it can handle the workload, and that it meets all those requirements we talked about.
So we're making sure that it doesn't crash when people start using it.
Exactly. Yeah. No one wants a system that crashes, right? And the business analyst helps design these tests, looks at the results, and makes sure any problems are fixed before we move on.
Okay, and UAT is where we bring in the actual users.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like the dress rehearsal before the big show. We want to make sure the system's not just functional, but that it's easy to use and solves those real-world problems.
So the business analysts really involved in this whole UAT thing.
Yeah, absolutely. They're planning it, guiding it, analyzing the feedback. It's a big part of their role.
It's a lot more than just letting users play with the system and see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah, it's structured. We want to make sure we're getting valuable feedback.
Okay, so we've talked about all these different parts, this customer discovery, this process mapping, these requirements, user stories, all this testing. It seems like a good Salesforce business analyst needs to have a lot of different skills.
Oh, definitely. It's a very diverse role.
So what are some of those key skills and qualities?
Communication is huge.
Okay.
You got to be able to talk to everyone, the technical folks, the business people, the executives. You got to explain things clearly, listen well, and build relationships.
So you're not just a technical person, you're also a translator, I guess, between these different worlds.
Exactly. You're bridging that gap. And you need a sharp mind. You'll be looking at data, finding patterns, drawing conclusions.
Oh, wow, that sounds challenging.
It is. It's like being a detective.
Okay, so we've got communication, we've got analytical skills. What else?
And of course, you got to understand Salesforce itself,
Yeah.
inside and out, what it can do, what it can't do, the best ways to use it.
But it's not just technical, right? You also have to understand business.
Yeah, for sure. You need that business acumen. You got to see the big picture, understand their strategy, and translate all that into solutions.
Okay, so we've got communication, analytical thinking, Salesforce knowledge, business understanding. Am I missing anything?
I'd say you got to be a good problem solver, adaptable, and have a strong work ethic.
Okay.
Things don't always go as planned. You got to
Right.
be able to think on your feet, find solutions, keep things moving.
And adaptable because every project is going to be different.
Exactly. And a good work ethic's crucial because things can get pretty intense, especially with tight deadlines and the pressure to deliver.
Okay, so it's more than just a job. It's like a way of thinking and tackling challenges.
You could say that, yeah, it's in high demand, though. More and more companies are relying on Salesforce.
This has been really, really interesting.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I'm learning a lot.
Me too. It's been a great discussion.
So before we wrap up this part,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned earlier, like, continuous learning is really important in Salesforce.
It is, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, Salesforce is constantly changing.
Right.
New stuff coming out all the time.
So even if you get your certification, you got to keep up to date.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's Trailhead, there's webinars, there's online communities, industry events.
Trailhead, that's that free learning platform, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
You can learn at your own pace.
And the webinars and those communities and events, those are good for networking.
Absolutely. Yeah. Connect with other professionals, learn from each other.
Okay, well, this brings us to the end of this part of our deep dive into the Salesforce Business Analyst certification.
It's been a good journey so far.
We've talked about customer discovery, business process mapping, all those requirements, user stories, testing, continuous learning. We even used some real-world examples.
Yeah, we did.
To show how this all works.
Yeah, and I hope you're feeling inspired.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe pursue this path.
But we're not done yet.
No, we're not.
We still have one crucial area to talk about, user acceptance.
Right. User acceptance, that's where we really get to see if this thing works, if it actually does what it's supposed to do for the people who are going to be using it.
Yeah, it's like the final test drive. We've built this car. We think it looks good. You think it runs well. But let's let someone actually get behind the wheel and take it for a spin.
And as we've been talking about, the business analyst, they play a really big role here.
They've been involved from the start, gathering those requirements, figuring out those user stories, working with all the stakeholders.
So it's not just checking off boxes, making sure it technically works. It's about making sure it actually solves the problems, and it's easy to use. It fits into their workflow.
Okay, so let's say we've done our user acceptance testing.
Yeah.
We got all that feedback. We ironed out the wrinkles, and now it's decision time.
Yeah, the big go decisions.
Do we launch this thing, or do we go back and tweak a few more things?
Right, and it's not always an easy decision.
Right.
There are a lot of things to consider. How bad are the bugs that are left? Are there a lot of them? Is the system stable? What are the users saying? Are they happy with it? And is the business really ready to switch over to this new system?
Right. So even if it technically works, if users are struggling with it or it just doesn't really fit how they do things, we might have to hold back a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's better to fix those problems now than launch it and have everyone frustrated.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that, no?
And that's why having that really good UAT plan, those clear acceptance criteria, and a business analyst who can really manage this whole process, that's crucial.
It is. A well-executed UAT can make all the difference.
Okay, so let's say we launch it.
Right.
It's not like we just flip a switch and everything's perfect, right?
Right. The work doesn't stop there.
Right.
You got to support the users, you got to keep an eye on the system, make sure everything's running smoothly, and be ready to make changes if you need to.
And again, the business analyst is a key part of that.
They are, yeah. They're the ones providing that ongoing support, answering questions, troubleshooting those little hiccups, and gathering more feedback so you can keep making things better.
So it's a journey. It's not a destination.
That's a great way to put it.
They're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Before we wrap things up, you mentioned earlier like the importance of documentation and version control for these requirements.
Oh, yeah, that's super important.
Yeah, why is that?
We don't want developers building things that nobody asked for, or users getting confused because the system doesn't do what they thought it would do.
So it's about making sure everyone's on the same page the whole time.
Exactly. And tools like Jira, they really help with this.
You keep track of everything.
They do. They keep track of all the changes, all the different versions, who made what change when. It's like having a single source of truth for the whole project.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot. Customer discovery, process mapping, requirements, user stories, testing, UAT, communication,
Mm-hmm.
the role of the business analyst. Is there anything else we should cover before we finish up this deep dive?
You know, we've talked a lot about how to be a business analyst, but I think it's worth talking about why would you want to do this? Why is this role so important?
Right. It's more than just a job.
It is a good business analyst. They're like problem solvers. They're connecting the dots. They're helping businesses and users. They're the ones who make sure Salesforce actually makes a difference for the company you know.
So if you're interested in technology and you like business and you want to help people,
Mm-hmm.
this could be a really, really good career.
It can be. It's in high demand, and it's only going to become more important as more companies start using Salesforce.
Okay, I think we've covered just about everything.
Yeah, I think so too.
Any final words of wisdom for someone who wants to become a business analyst?
Never stop learning.
Okay.
Salesforce is always changing. There's always something new to discover. So stay curious, ask questions. Don't be afraid to dive in.
That's great advice. This has been a really, really awesome deep dive into the Salesforce Business Analyst certification.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a much better understanding of what this role is all about.
Me too. It's been a great conversation.
We've talked about everything from customer discovery to UAT and everything in between. And I think we've really shown how important this role is for businesses.
We have.
But we're not quite done yet.
No, we're not.
We still need to talk about what happens after the launch, that post-launch phase, and the business analyst's role and all that.
Right. Yes. We launched this thing and then what?
Yeah. Does the business analyst just like walk away?
No, definitely not. It's just the beginning, really.
Okay.
Now you got to make sure it actually works in the real world.
Right.
You got to be there to help people, answer questions, fix any problems that pop up.
So the business analyst becomes like a support person almost.
In a way, yeah. They got to make sure the solution is really being used and that it's making a difference.
Okay, so it sounds like this role is really about helping people.
It is, yeah. It's about using your skills to solve problems and make things better for the business and the users.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
So we talk about all this stuff: customer discovery, process mapping, requirements, user stories, testing, UAT.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've covered a lot.
We've gone through the whole life cycle.
And we've seen how important the business analyst is.
Yeah, they're the ones connecting all the dots,
Right.
making sure everything runs smoothly.
So what's the big takeaway here?
I think the biggest thing is if you're thinking about a career in Salesforce,
Mm-hmm.
this is a really good path to consider.
It is, and if this deep dive has made you curious,
Mm-hmm.
there's tons of resources out there.
Oh yeah, Salesforce has a ton of stuff online. Trailhead, webinars.
Trailhead, that's a good one.
It is. It's a great place to start.
Well, I think that's about it for our deep dive into the Salesforce Business Analyst certification.
Yeah, I think we've covered just about everything.
This has been really, really interesting.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I've learned a lot.
Me too.
I hope our listeners have too.
Me too.
And maybe we've inspired some people to consider this as a career.
I hope so. Yeah, it's a great field to be in.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us on the deep dives.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time.
See ya.